Hello, and we are live again. I'm liking this. I'm starting to feel like I'm a little bit of like a television host, what with the Photographers Unite and now this. I'm actually finding myself becoming a little bit of an internet celebrity. I was spotted in a conference in Chill. Yeah, I'm really excited to be announcing our ambassador program. We have most of our ambassadors here with us today. But Daniel, why did we decide to start an ambassador program?
So it actually happened during, well, it's something that we've always wanted to do, but it wasn't necessarily a big priority. And then with the pandemic that started, it just forced us to reevaluate our marketing strategy. And, a lot of our emphasis for the year was going to be on Google ads and Facebook ads. And as, the industry was sort of flipped on its head, as was our marketing plans. So we went back to the drawing board, and there was no aha moment, but it was pretty obvious that we wanted to really invest in the people that make up the industry and the people who have been supporting Image Salon and trusting us for so many years. And with everything that's going on in the world, we just feel like we wanted to bring people together and really have everyone more connected. And this was the perfect way to do it. So here we are.
Yeah, and I feel like we've assembled like the Justice League of photographers. Like what I'm really stoked about, because I've like probably spent the last 2 weeks just really looking into everybody's work and like scraping the internet for like every possible internet interview they've ever done. And what I'm really excited about with this group is like, obviously they're incredible photographers, but it's the fact that they really give back to the community and like work tirelessly to, I think, like empower like other photographers to do better, and like not just as to do better as photographers, but also as people. And it's like really interesting to, come across an interview where somebody's like referencing one of our ambassadors and like how much of an impact they've had on their career and have got them to the place. So at this point, I'll just go through the list and get everybody to introduce themselves in that like fun little awkward way that we force to do with these video conferences. So off of my screen, Elena, will start with you once you get unmuted.
Okay, can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
All right, hi guys. I'm a little nervous to be part of this amazing group, but my name is Elena Esplere, and I'm a lifestyle family and newborn photographer based out of Seattle, Washington. So I have been been photographing families for about 11 years, and I do a lot of families, like 150 to 180 at the most is what I've done a year. I'm super passionate about this type of photography that is not perfect. It's really kind of more moment driven and heart centered. And so the other part of my business is I have an education platform where I empower other, and it's usually moms, photographers who started being a photographer because they have their own children, empower them to take ownership of their artistic voice, call themselves an artist, and then start a business that's profitable and meaningful for them. So that's me.
Perfect. And two-man, going to you, Erika and Lanny. And Daniel, if you can unmute them. I don't have that power.
There we go. Can you hear us now?
Perfect.
Yes. Okay. So we're Erika and Lanny of Two Man Studios. Your introduction was perfect for us all because, if anybody knows Lanny and I, you know that we're not actually really that passionate about photography, and really it's a vehicle to pursue things that we are passionate about in life that are related to photography and many other avenues. Anything you want to say?
No, that was perfect.
Okay. So thanks for having us. We're
Happy to be here.
super happy to be here and to be, we love what Image Salon is doing, and we love that they're committed to growth and betterment for the community. And that's why we're here.
Awesome. Thank you. And Kirsten, going to you.
Hi, all. I'm Kirsten Lewis. I'm based in Denver, Colorado. Ironically, this is the longest I've ever spent time here in the 7 years I've lived here. I average about 250 days a year on the road. I'm a documentary photographer. The majority of my income comes from day in the life in-home sessions of families, but I am segueing into business storytelling right now and advertising work rooted in moment-driven images, which is pretty exciting. And I have a 4-year-old, and I'm 43, and I'm really tired. So, that pretty much sums up me these days.
Yeah, I think that's true for everybody. But yeah, like I'm just really appreciative of like the community and being able to rely on people to support us through the COVID. And Marlies, going to you for your little introduction.
Can you hear me?
I can.
Okay. I am Marlies Hartman. I am based in Santa Monica, California, so just connected to Los Angeles. I'm definitely a little intimidated by this amazing group of photographers, and I feel really lucky to be a part of this group. I feel really lucky to be a part of Image Salon. I'll save all the good things that I have to say for later, but I'm one of the newer kids on the block. I just started shooting weddings full-time in 2017. I was sort of second shooting before that. And I have an 11-year-old daughter that I have spent more time with, kind of like Kirsten living in Colorado. Like I've never spent this much time with her, and that's been really, really awesome this year.
I just want to say, if I was this good after 2.5 years, like I would be quite happy. So, yeah, what you've achieved in so little time is quite the achievement. So
thank you. Yeah, and I'm starting to do some teaching, which is great. I'll be teaching at a retreat next year in France, and then I was supposed to have my first workshop this year, but obviously those plans got soiled. So I think we're going to be looking at next year for that as well.
Yeah, I agree with everything that Daniel had to say, and it also, because I wasn't aware of your work until you became an ambassador, and I was looking into it, and then came across an interview, and I was like, wait a second, that's almost
in that voice, Bryce. Did you see
yeah, well, that's my internal voice with everything. And Josh, we'll go to you for your introduction. Whenever you're ready.
My bad. I thought I was going to be automatically unmuted. I'm Joshua, and this is my wife, Erika. Just had to plug a picture. But we are wedding and portrait photographers based in Brooklyn, New York. We are not the new kids on the block. We are quite old. But just to talk about our business, we are also educators as well. And we love what we do. I guess that's all I got. Thank you, Bryce.
No, that's perfect. Thank you. And we'll go to Jason and Joanne. Daniel might have to unmute you guys. I'm not.
There you go.
Okay, there it is.
Oh, now? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you perfect now.
Hi.
Hi, everybody. It's Joanne. I'm Jason. We are business people and photographers, and we own a portrait studio. We've been wedding and portrait photographers for quite a long time now, and we are in northwestern Arizona, just outside of Las Vegas, and a nice little small town. We have 4 kids ranging from 17 to 21. And we have a couple of cats and a dog, and I don't really know what else to tell you, but we are educators and photographers, and we're really glad to be part of this incredible group of people and here talking to you today with our wonderful friends at the Image Salon.
Thank you so much. And Tomayia, it's your turn as soon as you get unmuted.
Good morning, everybody. I am Dr. Tomayia Colvin in Houston, Texas. I am a high school senior portrait photographer. I probably shoot less than anybody on this call. My life is really filled with education and advocating for Black and photographers of color.
Yeah, that's perfect. And I don't know, I'm a really big fan of all the work that you do, and I'm constantly like looking towards you for guidance whenever I'm starting to feel a little stumped in my role of community manager. Okay, but I've prepared a list of questions. This is actually the most prepared for an interview that I've ever been. I typically don't have anything written up. So first question. And if anybody wants to go first, you can just pick up your hand. If not, then I will take control and just pick somebody at random. So why did you originally decide to start outsourcing?
Are we all muted? Okay. No.
Elena. You're okay. Perfect. You can go.
I think that Daniel and I were muting and unmuting me.
Like the car lock.
Because I think that look, Kirsten and I are both family photographers, but I feel like for family photographers, it's much less common to outsource. And I felt a little bit of resistance toward it because I was like, well, that's part of my creative process and I will no longer actually be a photographer if I do it. But it's been, I think this is my 3rd year with Image Salon, the only company I've ever used for outsourcing. And I was at a point where I literally couldn't take more shoots. I had 12 in my to edit queue and I couldn't take on any more. I was saying that I was booked for the year and this was like in June, I think. And I was talking to a friend who's a wedding photographer and she said, you should consider outsourcing. And I'm like, I can't afford that. You know, I don't really want to take on this expense. And I did the math and I was like, oh, well, if I outsource all of these sessions, I only have to pick up 4 more sessions in the next 3 months to make up the entire cost. And so I went for it, I did it. And that year I was able to increase the amount of shoots that I did and the amount of time that I have. Turns out editing is not what I like doing at all. By so much that I have literally never turned back. And that was like 3 years ago. So family photographers that are nervous about it, it's like, give it up. Let the pros do it.
Ayo. And two, man, we'll go to you because you guys have been with us, I think, since like day one almost.
Day one. We were with Image Salon before it was Image Salon.
Really?
I think so.
Honestly, the Image Salon might have not started if it wasn't for Lanny and Erika, who reached out to us before it was even started and asked if we could, you know, take off.
You guys were just starting to accept. Anyways, simple answer is that I hate editing. I literally dislike editing. And as photographers, yeah, we often define ourselves like, well, I'm an artist, everything has to be done by me. But all these things we use to define ourselves really just put us in boxes. And there's so many ways to do a business, right? And they can be all completely different and all at different points of the spectrum. So for us, you know, we outsource 90% of our editing to the Image Salon. We'll get into that later with
I was just going to mention that I actually love editing.
Yeah, Lanny loves it.
And we'll talk about how actually outsourcing our editing has helped me enjoy editing more and focus on the parts of it that I love. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we'll go further into that. I think you've got a question about that later, Bryce, right?
I do. It's question number 7. And then Jason and Joanne, why did you guys originally decide to start outsourcing?
Basically, it was the same as Elena, is time. We spent so much time, I mean, up so late at night, and the kids made a comment one day and they were like, Mom, you are always on your computer. And I didn't realize how much time we were taking away from the kids until they said something to us. So I think it was then that we kind of decided, okay, we need to make a change.
Yeah, autonomy. We want our life back, and the Image Salon has given us our life back. We're able to go out and do a shoot, come home, send everything off, and then we can just relax and enjoy time with our family or doing whatever we'd like to do, which is binge watch television at this point. But yeah, it just frees up our time and gives us our lives back. We love it.
Awesome, thank you. And Kirsten, for you, why did you originally decide to start outsourcing?
So it was Mystic Conference. I think it was 2014 or 2013. I can't remember the year, but Ryan Brenizer and I were both speaking that year. And I've seen hundreds of presentations at this point at conferences, but something Ryan said literally changed my life. And that was, he said he evaluated all the things he liked doing and not liked doing in life and business. And he just decided to stop doing anything he didn't like. And that was, I mean, just like a light bulb went off. He said, why am I going to waste time doing things I'm not good at or what I don't like to do in my business, which takes away from the things I am good at and I do like to do. And so I immediately stopped responding to any emails. I started outsourcing, and I hired people to do that for me because A, I'm not that great at it, and B, I just don't enjoy it. It's not my favorite part of the process. I think you're going to go into how we actually use Image Salon, because I do still post-process some of my images, but the majority or the bulk I now send out.
Perfect. Yeah, and that's definitely something we're going to get into, and that's one of the things I'm really excited for, is like that workflow, because when I was shooting, like everything I did was like Mickey Mouse and like spit and glue, and yeah, without a workflow you just crumble. And Marlies, why did you originally start to outsource?
So it was Thanksgiving weekend of 2017, and I had like maybe 7 or 8 of my weddings from the year in September and October. And I was so backed up that I literally did not see my family that entire weekend. And I was out of state visiting family. And I got to a point where I just broke down one night and I was crying. And I remember you guys had some sort of sale that weekend for like Cyber Monday or Black Friday or something. And I thought to myself, if I don't invest in outsourcing and take some of this burden off of me, I will hate this work and I will not want to keep doing it. And so I think it was the next day, I literally sent off 6 weddings to you guys. And I was just like, okay, we'll see what happens. Because at this point, either like this works or I'm done, because I can't keep living this way. And I'm a single parent. And so as a mom, like I already was taking so much time away from her, that just shooting, that then on top of that with the editing, it was like I didn't get to see her at all. And I instantly felt like that burden was lifted off of me. And it's kind of like what Jason was saying. I felt like I got my life back, even in that moment, just knowing like, okay, I'm not alone in this and I don't have to do everything in my business by myself.
Yeah. I have things to say to that, but I'm gonna keep them for later. And Tomayia, why did you originally start to outsource?
For me, it's always about the kids, and if it's gonna save me time with me hanging out with my kids, then that's what I'm always going to choose. And so I don't necessarily feel like at the time that like I don't like editing, so I didn't want to do that. So I found a company that worked with Black skin tones the way that I wanted my skin tones to look, and never went back, like ever.
Yeah, and we're really happy to have you. And Josh, to you, why did you originally decide to start outsourcing?
Well, same with everyone else, is my time. I felt like my life was editing. Like my life turned into editing and shooting. I think I was shooting probably like 40 weddings in a year and having to like do every single thing myself, and then looking at the calendar again and you're projecting at 40 again. And then just like coming down to the end of the year, I remember September's, October's, and November's would be the toughest parts of my year because I've had my backlog from the summer, and it was just, I felt like I didn't have a life. I didn't have my life. My friends would be at brunch on Saturdays and Sundays. And even if I didn't have a wedding, I couldn't take a day off. So it kind of made sense to pass all that weight to someone else. And Image Salon was the one for me.
Yeah. And Josh, I'm going to stay with you and we'll go into the second question.
Sure.
So with that, like, how do you fit? Like, how does the image salon fit into your workflow?
Okay, so I mean, for me, it's pretty straightforward. Shoot the wedding, or whatever event it is. It doesn't need necessarily be the wedding. Well, you know what? Let me take that back.
Okay.
All right. So right now, Image Salon is twofold. So I'm transitioning also my retouching as well as my wedding work over to Image Salon.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll start with the weddings, which is really straightforward. Shoot the wedding, download it, cull it myself, and then send it directly to Image Salon. Get it back, when I get it back, I take a look and sort of go over it, make sure that I like everything that's there. I do take notes on what if I need to make any changes, or I see some consistencies with something that happened the last time that I wasn't particularly a favorite of. And if it's subtle changes, I'll make that myself. If it's something I think that needs to go back, then I'll send it back. But for the most part, we've been pretty good with receiving our stuff back from Image Salon. So I really just export it and send it right to my client. That's awesome. That's as straightforward as I can get, and that's happened for the most part pretty often lately. When it comes down to retouching, so all my portrait images that get delivered to my client gets retouched. So I do the initial edits, just like coloring and any toning that I feel needs to get done, and then I send over to Image Salon for background removals or background extensions and skin retouching, which is the most important thing for the portrait work. And once I get that, again, upload it directly to my client.
That's awesome. And I really appreciate the part that you mentioned of like, if you get something back and it's not, I guess, like quite up to standard or whatever, it's like really taking the time and expressing that. Because the more I'm here, like the more I'm finding out like that how important that like communication between the photographer and the editor is. I think that's huge. But going to Mann, how do you guys structure your workflow?
You start.
Yeah. How do we structure our workflow? Basically, after we've done the cull, we send everything that we've called into Image Salon. And it's definitely, a lot of people ask us, how long did it take to get your editor to the standard that you're looking for? And I will say that it's not like a finite time period. It's an ongoing process, and we still communicate with our editor. She's a part of our team, and we're constantly giving her feedback about what we like and what needs to be changed. And the way we do this is very simple, actually, because when I get a catalog back from the Image Salon, any images that I do major tweaks to that I don't like that I don't like the direction she's gone with the editing, or I think it needed more dodging and burning, I'll export the edit as she edited it. Then I'll do my tweaks. Then I'll export my edit. They're all in a folder on my desktop. And at the end, usually takes me about an hour or two to go through the entire catalog. I send Ariel that catalog, and then she can see her edits versus my edits. And that's sort of the best feedback we can give her.
After every wedding, essentially, we get closer and closer because it's a continuous feedback loop, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then
when we go ahead, Daniel.
Well, it's funny that you mentioned doing it this way, because just yesterday I was giving one of the editors feedback, and we do it the exact same way internally, where we really show the side by side. I think that visual feedback is really the best way to go about it.
Yeah, and then when we get the photos back from the Image Salon, Erika goes through and she sort of makes a few tweaks here and there and sends the feedback. And then also she kind of flags the ones that are her favorites, or the ones that we feel are, the real standout shots from the wedding. And she puts those into a subfolder for me. And then that's where I go in and I start doing the artisan edits on those. And I've actually found that it's beneficial for me to wait until I get the photos back with the Image Salon edits, because I'll often piggyback off those edits. I'll often use the local brushwork and kind of tweak and finesse from there.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, but I think the most important thing is it's not you send your wedding away and you don't think about it and then you get it back and you send it to our client. That's not our workflow at all. Like, our editor is a part of our team. We treat her as such. The communication is constant and ongoing, and we expect it always will be.
mm-hmm.
Yeah, for sure. But Kirsten, I also want to hear how you kind of structure your workflow, like being more focused on like the family and stuff, and also like spending like 24 hours to 72 hours with a family, which is like the most punk rock thing I've ever heard. But
she did that with us.
I photographed Lanny and Erika's family and as well, and I don't think it's punk rock. I mean, some of you all shoot weddings that are like 12 hours long, and that's a lot more exhausting, in my opinion. I don't know. And Jason and Joanne's family was a breeze. Their kids actually took me, what are the go-karts? Is that what they're called? Go-karts. They took me for a ride, and I put my life in the hands of, like, at that point, what, a 12-year-old driving me around?
Yeah, something like that, yeah.
So I do something similar to two-man, actually. So once I have all of my my files, I go through and do a first round edit. So I use that term editing for my culling process. So I'll edit through. I have a three-phase edit system. I use Photo Mechanic, and I tag them 3, 2, 1. 3 is my first round, 2 is my second round, and then my second round then gets divided into a third set or a second set. So I have my 2s, and then that gets split up. I'm guessing you, Lanny, you and Erika might do the same thing. From the 2s, I select the very best, and that very best is what I also call my artisan edit. So out of anywhere between 6,000 and 8,000 frames that I'll shoot within a day in the life per day, that'll probably get edited down to about 250 images total. And of that, I'll only select around 80 that'll go in the slideshow. So really small percentage of what I'm actually making pictures of. Mm-hmm. It's the 80 or so that stay with me, and I post-process those. Those are what goes in the slideshow. That's what I'm gonna really suggest or encourage goes in an album. And then the additional set is what goes to Image Salon, and they post-process that. The beautiful thing is, once you find an editor or a post-processor that you really like working with, and they understand what your inclination is, not only with shooting, but with the post-processing process, it's pretty seamless. And that set of photos looks more in line with what my artisan edit looks like than when I did it myself. Because when I did it myself, that was really like a scrap batch of photos. Do you know what I mean? Like, I just like very quickly would put a light edit on them and get them out, versus now I'm paying someone to actually put in the time to make them look as good as my artisan edit. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that really does make sense. Elena, I'm going to bounce to you with a question, if that's okay. So when you started with the Image Salon, like how long did it take for like the editor to start getting your style right?
So
going in on it.
For the whole time that I've been with the Image Salon, I've had 3 editors, and one has been with me almost the entire time. So I think I really think it's important to tell people that, because I think when people think about outsourcing, they think that they're just kind of like sending their stuff to the wind. And I feel a lot like two-man, where my editor is part of my team. She also edits my associates' work as well, so that we're all really, cohesive as far as the brand goes. But so the first editor was really good right away. The second one that I had, for whatever reason, my first editor had to leave. And I remember the customer service was incredible. It was like October. It was really busy season. And the second editor especially like my in-home newborn, he couldn't gel with it. He was definitely like more of a wedding photographer editor, I think. And so, but immediately Daniel, like he came in, edited one of my galleries for me. He's like, all right, we're going to get this out. I know you're busy. And he's like, let me find someone else for you. And that's when I got with Katerina. I've been with the whole time since then. But it's a really similar, you know, I feel like the way that I don't usually edit something for her. I'll just kind of tell her if something's off. I'm like, you know, this whole gallery is a little too warm. My editing's pretty clean though. Or it needs a little more contrast. Can you fix it? And there's a lot of back and forth, but we're in such a good groove now that rarely happens. I'd say in 2019, I probably only had to do that like 3 times maybe. So, and I think I'm pretty high volume during the busy time. And I think that she just gets at the hang of what I need. And I shoot kind of in similar light a lot of the time too. So it's pretty simple.
No, that's awesome. And Tomayia, I'm going to bounce with you with the same question of like, how long did it take your editor to get it right? Just because like you mentioned skin tones and editing.
Yeah, you know, it after the initial onboarding and us looking at images kind of like side by side, like this is what I want my images to look like. We've been pretty on point since. Even in the process of me like updating cameras, like, okay, the images, I mean, the color is not going to look like this, but I would like it to look as close as this as possible. And I would even, like when I was shooting weddings, I would just send the whole thing. I'm like, get this out of my face. Like, I don't want to see this anymore. Like, I don't just hear the whole thing. And then they would color it and send it back, and I'll send it to the clients. So it'd be very rare for me to even like go back and re-edit something. Like it would be, I mean, yeah, that's like maybe like a 2% chance, maybe. And she works so well, like even if it's like I do my New Year's Eve session for my high school seniors, and I do a really good job of letting her know like this is what's coming up in advance. And so like we plan in advance, and it's been some times that I know that she's probably worked late to make sure that my images came out on time so that I would be able to publish the work that needed to go out. So I have no complaints with my friends. So we are like peanut butter and jelly around here. Like, I don't know if she quit, Daniel, I don't know. I'm going to find her.
I'll slide you the address if that happens.
So, I mean, she's been so good. And so even on the times where it's been like, maybe she was off or something. I don't know what type of note-taking system you all have around there. But just in the event like someone else had to take over an order or two for me because she was like obviously on vacation or something. But I always knew when she was on vacation. So if she was on vacation, I would be like, oh, I'm on vacation too. Like we on vacation together. And so, and then if, you know, just by chance, like someone else like had to edit the images, and they've been pretty good too. So whatever like note-taking system you all have for us is really good, because because somebody can pop in and do an order and it still be okay.
Yeah, and like that's the thing that blew my mind when I started here as an editor, like seeing the back end like dashboard and like the technical aspect there, and like how much like note taking and that type of stuff happens, because it happens. Sometimes people get promoted or they go out and do their own things, and like another editor needs to step in. But going to Jason and Joanne, I'm just curious to hear about like how much, once you get your edits back, like how much time you spend reviewing and tweaking the edits.
Yeah, so what we, you know, what's really neat for us is that initially, yes, of course, there was like a period of onboarding, but it seemed to go really quick. And I think we're on our 3rd editor. And what's been really cool is that from editor to editor, it seems as though the notes that you all keep on your end and the understanding and training is pretty cohesive. So as we've had to change editors the couple of times we've been with you, I think it's been about 4 or 5 years now, it's really been a pretty smooth process. So when we get our photos back, I got to be honest with you, I mean, what do you have to, I mean, you just sometimes I mean, there's really nothing we do. I mean, the color's perfect, the adjustments are perfect.
Yeah.
Just, you know,
just every once in a while, if the client had like just something special they wanted tweaked on themselves, then that's the only thing I've had to.
Yeah, but
other than that, everything's been.
Yeah, and I'm not trying to like, you know, be all like, oh, everything's amazing, but it's just simple, and we don't have to think about it, and that's the part that I like the most, because I'm just tired. You can see it in my face. I'm just a tired person. We you know, like we all are. We work hard and we're tired, and having the ability to send something off and get it back, get our photos back, and have them be, you know, within 99% of ready to send to a client is just such a relief, and it's so much easier than laboring over that stuff, and it just really frees up our time. So yeah, we're hitting 99.5% perfection on everything, where we really don't touch anything at this point.
Awesome. No, I'm really happy to hear that.
You guys are all saying such nice things, but I think I looked at everyone, and I think everyone here has had issues at some point or another over the course of time, and it is perfectly normal, and it is very realistic to expect there to be some issues, either because, you know, unfortunately your editor leaves, or your editor's on vacation, or, you know, they're human and they're just not seeing things the same way that day, and it can happen, unfortunately. But what's most important is that, you know, you as the photographer, as the client, keep communicating and, you know, do provide that feedback. Otherwise, we assume everything is okay. So, you know,
I have rage typed at Daniel on like a Saturday night, going, "Oh my God," you know, I think twice maybe, but I try to, you know, limit it.
I've also tried to illegally get other people that work at Image Salon to tone my photos until I was yelled at and said, "They can't tone your photos, Kirsten. They can't do it." I think communication is 100% the most important thing working with the editors. And people like me, I don't know about you guys, but I know there's other people watching, that you don't want to upset or hurt the feelings of the post processor. So you might not say anything because you're a people pleaser, but then you're going to just stew in frustration and then maybe give up, right? Versus I'm learning to just be very vocal up front and say, "Hey, this isn't working for me. Let's try it this way, and let's try again."
I think what's most important, I'm glad you said that, Kirsten, about, you know, upsetting the editor. It's about the tone and the way that you provide, you know, your message. If you're gonna yell like Jason did at me, you know, on that side, then we're just joking. You never. But yeah, like if you're gonna yell and, you know, assume that the editor didn't put any effort, or that they rushed it, you know, basically don't make assumptions as to, you know, the amount of effort and the work that went into it. If something's off, it's just because something didn't, you know, come across in the way that you like things done. And keep in mind that we work with, you know, thousands of photographers, and we see the full spectrum, you know, when it comes to not only quality of photography, but, you know, the way that you like things done. And so editors have, you know, a lot of things that they need to juggle, and providing the feedback in a kind and productive way is really the best way to go.
Yeah, and like going off that, like Daniel, like I think what you've said is that like it's actually humans like editing the work, and like working here has probably made me like a better partner to my girlfriend, because it's like learning how important like having that communication, and like that you're able to express when you're frustrated or like unsatisfied with something in like a productive manner and moving forward. But Marlies, I'm interested in hearing, like, kind of going off what we're talking about, is what would be your recommendations for someone that's outsourcing to the image salon for the first time?
Ooh, okay, a recommendation if you're outsourcing for the first time. Well, so I do things a little bit different, where I pre-edit about 10 to 20% of the gallery that I deliver to my clients. So I think if you're especially doing it the first time, I mean, we're talking about after you go and do your like intake where you edit together. Are you talking about that? Like, we've already
just
done
like,
that?
or just, yeah, just kind of like in general, right? Like when you've kind of made that decision that you're going to like start outsourcing, and like how do you, Yeah, like I'm interested in kind of like hearing your workflow, and then also like how do you overcome that struggle of like letting things go? Because I think delegating as a creative or as a photographer is incredibly challenging.
So, I mean, where I am now, I'm in a place in my life where I sort of, Kirsten was talking about Brenizer outsourcing his life. And that was something that last year I decided that I needed to do. Again, like I am one person, just like I believe in having a second shooter at a wedding. I oftentimes bring a second shooter and an assistant. I think the more that you can support yourself as a team, the better your work will be. And I think the return on investment ends up being really high. As far as my workflow, so like I was saying, I pre-edit about 80, sorry guys, I told you this was gonna happen. We rescued 2 kittens last year and they really like to come visit when I'm online. So I pre-edit about 80 to 120 photos from each wedding. I think the first time that I was sending galleries out to Image Salon, I think I maybe was pre-editing 20 images. And I found for me that the more that I pre-edit, one, I give those as the slideshow images to my couples. So I pre-edit those 80 photos and then send them out to my couple so that they get those photos back within about 3 or 4 weeks of the wedding. Those are the photos I want them to fall in love with. And then I let them know in another 3 to 4 weeks, they'll get the rest of their images. And those are usually the ones that I would send out. And I found that by having those pre-edited images, I'm giving my editor, who I'm like so in love with, I give her something to go off of basically from every part of the day. And I found that by putting that time in on the front end, by pre-editing, by the time I get the gallery back from her, I mean, I will maybe change 5 photos. I mean, that's how aligned we are at this point. In the very beginning, I definitely was spending more time just because like we were saying, there is a learning curve and there is a lot of communication that needs to happen. But if you're someone who's starting out, I think the big thing is just make sure that in your intake call, I don't know what you guys call it, whatever that your initial session is, that you really work those photos so that you can sort of dial in the look that you want, and you really communicate strongly if there's things that bother you or piss you off if you were to get a photo back. Like for me, the biggest thing we had that as a challenge was I try and shoot for highlights. So I was noticing in the beginning that my editor was raising the shadows way too high to try and make everything sort of look like soft light, right? And I wasn't getting that sort of dynamic range. And so it was just the kind of thing that once I communicated it with her, she was like, oh, I got it. Or during reception photos at a wedding, she was lowering the highlights too much. And so I just had to say, hey, like, I don't ever want my reception highlights to go below -20 or whatever. And once you sort of set those parameters, but for people to think it's going to be perfect right off, like after you send out your first wedding, I mean, it's just like anything else. I mean, if I hire an assistant to help me in my house, or if I have a new babysitter or anything that I'm going to be outsourcing, there's going to be a training period. Or any job that I've ever had in my life, I can't be expected to be perfect the first time I do it, right? The first time you go out and shoot, or the first time you go out and second shoot or assist another photographer, usually you get home that night and you're like, oh my gosh, that was like, I hope that was okay, because that felt like a disaster. So you have to give yourself grace, and you have to give them grace when they're first learning. Did that kind of answer?
No, yeah, that's perfect. And I got a couple of questions from Facebook. One's to do with pricing and the other one's to do with boudoir and privacy. Well, so we'll start with the pricing. So Elena, what's kind of your advice, or like when did you take the plunge to increase your pricing? Because I know we've kind of talked about this in the past.
To increase my pricing on what I charge for shoots?
Yeah, and like kind of getting over that fear and kind of self-doubt and undervaluing your services.
Oh boy, isn't that just like what we all did at the beginning, right? So I think that for me, when I teach about this as well, I always say you got to take emotions out of pricing. So what we do when we're new, especially I think family photographers, but you get on the Google and you're like, well, this person's really good and they charge this, and this person sucks and they charge this. I fall here in that range, which is actually not how you should price yourself. It's not, you know, this is a business, you have to make a profit. And so I used to be a nurse. I got paid for every single hour that I worked. And so when I'm a photographer, I want to get paid for every hour I work. And so the way that I talk about pricing for new photographers is I say, work backwards, like set yourself an income goal, think about how many shoots you want to do, and then figure out what you're going to charge. And then of course, factoring in all the expenses. So, but anyways, to make that more simple, how I feel like you should price yourself is you need to just remember that you are running a business. And even though what we're doing is, you know, incredibly personal, especially all of us here are very moment-driven photographers and we feel emotionally attached to our work, or maybe I shouldn't speak for everyone. I certainly do. I think just remember that, you know, art is a very, very valuable thing. Think about during COVID, what are people doing during COVID? They're watching art on TV, they're listening to art via music, they're reading books, which is art. Like, it is literally an essential thing in life, and you are doing that. So know your worth, know your value, and charge. And as far as it goes with editing, I think that, you know, for me, again, it's like time is money. I have a team. I do very easily hire out things that I don't want to do. And I raise my prices in order to accommodate that so that I can do what's important in my life.
Yeah, for sure. And does anybody else want to add to this pricing before I shift to boudoir? You can just actually raise your hand on the camera.
I'll just add, because I know it's a scary thing. Can you guys hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I know it's a scary thing to increase your prices, but there's a way to do it that's gradual and not so scary, especially if you're just starting out. When we started out, we increased our pricing by $300 every 3 weddings we shot. And that was a nice, gradual, non-intimidating, practical way to increase our prices. And we had a couple big jumps in there based on demand as well, but that was a less scary way to do it.
Yeah, for sure. And Tomayia, going to you with the pricing question before I move on to the boudoir, because I know like pricing is definitely something that you've talked about a lot. Like, what's kind of your advice there around how to price yourself as a photographer?
That's a whole lot this morning. I got a link for that. But one of the things that I hear people saying all the time is that they can't afford outsourcing. And I challenge that back to my life, is that I can't afford not to outsource my images. Because I often think to myself, if I'm laying on my deathbed, I'll be damned if I'm thinking about editing somebody's photos. I will not. I will be thinking about the time that I did not spend with the people that I care about the most. And so I push that question back to you. It's like, well, how important are the people in your life when it comes to your time? And you can't put a price tag on time and value because we're not in this place of where I think in this time has taught us that eventually we're all going to go and leave this earth. And so there is not a particular time that you can say, okay, well, I have 30 years left with my kids, and so I'm just going to go edit all these damn pictures. That's not what the hell I'm going to do. And so I push back that when people, you know, say, oh, I can't afford it, that's too expensive. Well, how expensive is your life to your kids? And the time that you don't get to spend with them because you're sitting at the computer editing people's photos for 8 to 12 hours.
Exactly.
And Marlies.
So just to kind of piggyback off of that, the way that I looked at it was I shoot 1 wedding a year for Image Salon. And I think about, because the cost that I invest in Image Salon per year is about the price that I would charge for 1 wedding. And so if I look at how many hours am I spending shooting that wedding, culling that wedding, editing those, you know, my pre-edits, and then doing all the other post-processing stuff, versus how many hours would I spend over the course of a year. I mean, I was shooting 30 30 weddings the past 2 years. And so if I think about those 29 weddings and how much time I save during those 29 weddings by outsourcing versus the time that I'm putting in for that 30th wedding so that I can make the money that I'm spending on those 29 weddings, it ends up being completely 1,000,000% worth it.
Yeah, no, that's true. And Daniel?
First of all, Tomayia, thank you for saying all that. I think I saw everyone's faces just kind of like stop moving, and we were all listening to what you were saying, because it's just so important in the grand scheme of life, not just, you know, here as being photographers. I personally was having, you know, like shivers all over my body just from like how important it was what you were saying. So thank you.
And one more thing that I wanted to say, totally relevant but irrelevant. Like my grandmother passed away in March, right? And so I remember going to the Real Life Conference, and one of the speakers there documenting that process, right, of someone in their family passing away, and just the entire process, right? And so as I knew that I was going through that process, even up until the day, like, and I still have the photos where like the people are coming to take the body away, and she's there, and just the whole story of that. And I knew taking those photos that I would never be strong enough to edit those photos, like ever. I would never, ever, ever be strong enough to edit those photos. But when I was taking those photos, in my heart, I knew that I could send those images out and still preserve like the integrity of the images to someone else who would know my heart and would take care of those images for me. So that's another piece that you have to think about as well.
I'll just add one more thought, and it's a little bit more, you know, pragmatic when it comes to being a photographer. I think it's important to curate our portfolios and make sure that we stand out in the industry as much as possible, which is sort of like the stepping stone to raising prices. If our portfolios are the same as the next photographer and the one after and the one after, you know, then your client ends up just price shopping because everything they see is the same. But if you are able to find, you know, those very best photos and really make those stand out in your work, especially as like an entry point to selling yourself, then that's going to be a helpful tool for raising your prices as you go. Lanny?
Jump in there, Daniel?
Yeah.
Yeah, because I thought maybe I could just kind of speak to all our friends and photographers out there who I know a lot of them, well, a lot of us despise editing, post-production, but there are some of us who enjoy it, myself included. And I sort of feel like, you know, when curating for our best work that we're going to show, not just to our clients and their families, but that we're going to put out there on our website, out to the world, we kind of have, and this kind of gets back to that fear of letting go. Like I suffer from that big time. I always have this fear of letting go of that side of the work. And somebody, somewhere I heard an analogy around post-production. I really like it. I can't remember where I heard it, but it was basically like the photos that we create in our cameras are like the music notes on the sheet of music. And then the edit or the post-production is like the performance of the symphony. And so when I sit down to edit, I often get pretty excited because that's part of that creative process now. It's like, okay, here's the song. Now I'm gonna play it with all my heart and soul, right? I wanna make it sound as best as I can. But if I have to do that for 1,000 images, I just can't do that, right? But if I've got a small selection of 30 or 40 photos, I can do that. And that can kind of help us elevate our post-production. So in a sense, that outsourcing for us has helped us up our post-production game, because in the past, it'd be like we'd select our favorites and we'd try to make those sing as best we could, and then maybe not care enough about all the others. Whereas now that we're outsourcing the others and we're essentially, paying the same for each of those photos, all of those photos are getting the care and attention that they should to bring them up to our standards and our expectations for our clients, right? And then we can focus on the ones that we, show to the world.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And I think there's always like flexibility there. Like you don't have to outsource all your images. But Josh, I want to get your thought on kind of this idea of curating your work and like doubling down on like who you are as a photographer? Because I know you do a lot of like workshops and that type of stuff, and I was getting frustrated when I was trying to find like an in-depth interview from you. All I came across was a lot of people that were like referencing attending like your workshops and stuff. So I'm just wondering, like, how do you go about curating your portfolio so it's reflecting the type of work that you want to be known for?
That's an interesting question. I think my portfolio has been something that I've been very conscious of for, I think, my entire career as a photographer. I don't necessarily like pull random photos together to create a portfolio, but it's a number of things that I like to photograph, or it's a lot of creative images that I would like to display, and I purposely, I guess, show those things to potential clients. Well, show them to the world, essentially. But for one, I know from a very high level, as a photographer, I want a really good mixture of strong portraits and strong moments. And I think those things are, the documentary side of me really wants to show really strong moments. And also the part of me that enjoys making very unique portraits also wants to shine through. So I think for me, where some people like to define themselves as a documentary photographer and others are really strong in portraiture, I like a happy dynamic of both, because I do enjoy shooting both. And it's funny as you're talking about this, because I'm speaking at Imaging USA next year on building your portfolio.
Oh, right on.
Which is very, very odd that you asked. I don't know. Is that good for a high level? You want some depth?
No, I think that's good for now. I'm definitely going to hit you up about doing like a podcast interview when I get back from the woods, and I really want to go into a couple of things with you. But for some boudoir questions, Jason and Joanne, I just want to, because with your guys', because you do a lot of boudoir work, and I really kind of like how your style has this like balance between like classy and edgy and sexy. It's kind of a lot of the things that I'm into. But I'm just curious, because this kind of comes up a lot, and then Daniel, I'm going to bounce a technical question over to you about how we structure things. It's like, how do you, like on a shoot, like how do you establish that trust with your clients so they're allowed to be like vulnerable and like exposed like that? And then also I'm curious to hear, like, how do you work with the image salon to ensure that like the privacy of your client is being upheld when you're like outsourcing those types of images?
Well, so Joe and I work as a team with boudoir, and there's plenty of men who do it alone as well. But with Joe and I, we kind of have a system worked out to where it's over the years become to where I'm the one that's working with the camera and handling that technical aspect of it, which allows Joe to be with our client like side by side and working with them for posing, making sure that they're comfortable at all times, and just kind of really being that support system for the client during the shoot, to just keep them super happy and make them 100% comfortable. I do that as well, more just joking and having a nice time and just being my normal silly self. But that system works great for us, and it really it's really helped us where at times there are clients that are like, hey, I really don't want to work with someone that's not female, but the two of you are a great team together, and I feel great about working with the two of you because of the way your system works. And so that's been great for us, and we love our clients, and they walk out of our studio feeling really incredible, and that makes it all worth it for us. As far as the security goes, we don't use any type of online galleries or anything for our client photos. And there was a breach several years ago where boudoir photos were ending up all over the web, and we don't use any type of online galleries. So when our work goes to Image Salon, it goes over as a Lightroom catalog, and fortunately, that's not something that your average weirdo on the internet may know what to do with. And it goes through your secure upload server and upload link. And then when their files are finished, it gets sent back to us through a secure link that only we know exists. And once we download it, I mean, I'm sure you guys on your end have everything 100% under control. We've never had any type of issues. So we're able to keep the privacy of all of our clients, you know, completely. It's paramount for us and our clients, and we've never had any issues, and it works out really nice, that system.
Awesome. And Daniel, if I can just kick it to you to kind of go a little bit more in depth, because this is like something that I got asked a few times on the trade shows, and especially with like people who are shooting like celebrities or, you know, like that kind of stuff. Like what type of things do we put in place for like non-disclosure agreements and some of the technical aspect of that?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we have a full privacy clause, you know, in our terms and conditions, but I don't know how many people read those in general. But otherwise, the more practical thing that we do is when a client places an order, they can indicate whether they want us to share the images or not, or rather if they allow us to use the images or not for marketing purposes. And so that's, you know, the easiest way really to control whether the images are shared or not. So if they say no, image usage is not allowed, then we don't share the images, you know, internally or externally. It's just the editor that sees the photos, works on them, sends them back, and that's it. We keep them because, you know, for a couple of weeks, just for safe storage, in case the client, you know, loses their files, we have a backup for a couple of weeks, and then everything is cleaned up and disappears.
And Kirsten?
I actually had a question, kind of piggybacking on this in the privacy. Do you guys have an option to not send the photos electronically? Do you give the option to send via a hard drive and have that hard drive returned? I don't know the answer to that.
We've had a few like old school photographers or people with very, you know, in very remote locations ask, you know, can I send you a USB key? We try to stay away from it because it's not an efficient workflow in 2020. But, you know, in a situation where you really, you know, need to, you know, go to extreme measures and respect your client's privacy, it's definitely something that we could make happen. We just have to.
I'm asking that as my clientele get more and more high profile, and the option is either not put anything online, not have the photos any way connected to a computer that has Wi-Fi, and do it that way and send it, or hiring people in-house to come do that in those occasions. That's why I asked.
Absolutely. I mean, nothing's impossible. So, you know, that requests could be, you know, it could be achieved for sure.
Yeah, and I feel like that's almost the unofficial motto of Image Salon is nothing's impossible, because like I'm constantly blown away by, you know, like a special request coming in and like how flexible as a company we are to do that. Like, you know, like moving like editors into spots where, you know, there's like privacy and like that type of stuff. But we've technically have come up on our time. So I'm going to close it with one last question and make the rounds with everybody before I say my tearful goodbye. So Elena, starting with you, because this is how my screen is organized. What has been the lasting impact of outsourcing on your business?
Oh gosh, I would say the lasting impact was is that I'm able to spend time expanding myself personally and business-wise because I have the time now. So when I started outsourcing was when my education platform really started growing, and it's because I had the time. I also got divorced that year and had a lot of, was all of a sudden a single mother. And so it also gave me the time to personally focus on that part of my life as well. So lasting impact, I think a lot of us are saying this, is time. I mean, that's your most valuable currency. And I just will always invest in my time. So.
Thank you. And two, man, what has been the lasting impact?
You go.
You haven't talked much.
Yeah, you go.
Oh, okay. I would say pretty similar to Elena, right? Just more quality time with our kids, less time in front of a computer. We're always trying to balance what we really value in life, which is time with our kids and time outdoors and exercising in nature and backpacking and mountaineering, with this business that has us stuck in front of the computer for so long. And those two things that seem like at opposite ends of the spectrum for us in terms of what we value in life and what kind of example we want to set for our kids. And so this allows us to try and minimize that time in front of the computer. And also it's increased the quality of the final product that we're delivering to our clients, which is obviously a good thing.
Yeah, it's helped strike a balance between this weird dichotomy that I face where, like I explained, I love the magic of sitting down and creating, right, with editing. But sitting in front of a computer goes against everything I value in life. So it's this weird thing. And so the outsourcing has helped us kind of strike a balance there.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I definitely want to, like, sometime in the future, maybe do an interview or produce some content with you guys, like, around that. Because I think how you approach the creative aspect and, like, balancing the art with the business is really interesting, and interested in hearing more. And
yeah.
Awesome. And Kirsten, what about you? What's been the lasting impact outsourcing's had on your business?
I think for me, I mean, aside from time, just more joy in my life because I'm doing less things that I don't like having to do. So I'm just giving myself an opportunity to fill my time with the things that I do enjoy doing. So joy is definitely, I think, the additional thing for me.
Awesome. Thank you. And Marlies, what about you? The lasting impact?
Well, I just wanted to say, I feel like one of the elephants in the room that we're not talking about is the fact that we all sort of have more time right now just because of the state of the world. But I think that actually makes it sort of the perfect time to start using outsourcing, because right now, if you have, you know, the one-off shoots that you're doing, or if you're not as busy, I mean, we have very few things happening right now. But if you have the opportunity now when things aren't as busy to really hone in with your editor what you're going to be, how your workflow will be with them, I feel like that's the thing that people aren't necessarily, we're not really talking about it. I think it's absolutely the perfect time to start working with an editor now, so that when next year things are back and happening, we're all hoping next year is when things will be back and happening, you'll already have that workflow down with them. And you're not trying to figure it out like I was when I had, 8 weddings backlogged and I was like literally crumpled in a floor crying while my whole family was like, you need help, So that was just something I wanted to say. But I mean, it's a lot of the same. It's having that time when you need it and you don't have it. And it's sort of like cleaning out someone else's closet versus your own. So I can quickly and efficiently clean out someone else's closet because I'm not as emotionally attached. When I go to clean out my own closet, like I try everything on, I try to see what still fits or doesn't fit, or I hope will fit, or, it just becomes sort of messy. And with my images, when I started outsourcing the bulk of them, the consistency in what I was receiving back was really valuable for me and valuable to my clients as well, because they're getting something that, I'm not at 3 a.m. with dark circles under my eyes trying to, keep myself awake as I'm trying to make their images look consistent. What I was getting back was very consistent. And so anything that can help me make more money doing this, I'm on board.
Hell yeah. Also, that story or like that narrative is like so common. And I think just like being humans, like we're really bad at like asking for help until it's like the last moment, and you're like just about fully burnt out or breaking down. And yeah, and I think the thing that I keep coming back to with like the whole COVID is eventually this is going to be over. And as like people are like postponing their weddings and rescheduling, like already we're starting to see like photographers like 21 season looking insane. So I think investing in the things right now, like not just like with outsourcing, but like what can you be getting into place that's going to be setting you up for success down the road is huge. And Joanne and Jason, what's been the lasting impact outsourcing's had on you fine folks?
Joanne doesn't want to talk, so I'm going to talk. So one thing I just can't stress enough is that our children now are almost every one of them is an adult. And when we decided to begin outsourcing and trying to have autonomy in our life, it was a little bit later than we probably should have. And we're in this time now, in this period now, where we're watching all of our kids go off to college and they're moving out and doing their own thing. And I'm sitting here thinking about what it was like when they were in 5th and 6th grade, and how with the oldest ones, they were in, just starting high school when we finally decided to try to get our lives back. And it's just really too late at that point, it feels like. And I feel fortunate that we were able to spend the last 4 years following them around the region as they played sports, and all of them became like excellent athletes and did all these great things with their lives. But I also regret that when they were in middle school and elementary school, the parts where it was just starting to build up, we were gone a lot for that and not available to them. And so, there are some regrets there, but it's a very personal thing. It's a very emotional thing to consider the fact that, being able to work with Daniel and the team at Image Salon has literally made it our life better and allowed us to enjoy the things that we didn't realize we were missing. And I don't want other people to labor through this stuff and wait until they've only got a few years left of their kids living at home before they decide to take the plunge. So very personal for us.
Yeah. And like that aspect of what we do as a company is like one of the main reasons why I fell in love with like working here. And Josh, to you, what's been the lasting impact outsourcing's had on you so far?
I think for me, it's been freedom. And I think everyone else here can relate to that joy that you feel that when you send off a project or a wedding to Image Salon, that joy and relief that you have that comes over you, with the exception of Lanny, because he actually wants to edit it. But I think that is one of the biggest things, feeling very heavily burdened before doing that. That's been great. And I think it's also allowed me to do things it's also allowed me to do things that I've wanted to do for such a long time, but never had the time to do so. I guess the benefit of that is growth. I've been able to grow my business. I've been able to grow my talents. I've been able to even just shoot for my own self, just because I've been able to not necessarily worry only about my clients' weddings and editing. So that's been my life.
No, I appreciate that. And Tomayia, what's been the lasting impact outsourcing has had on your business?
That I get to operate in my zone of genius.
There you go.
Yeah, I like that. That's big drop. Yeah, I'm gonna properly close this down, because when I did Photographers Unite, I just started cheering when it was a wrap and walked away, and it was very embarrassing for me. But yeah, I'm really excited that we're launching this program. I'm grateful for you guys taking the time. I'm really looking forward to producing some content together and like really digging into the different topics, because I've spent like the past 2 weeks like nerding out on all of your work and just becoming a really big fan of it. So yeah, looking forward to the future with you fine folks. So thanks again for making the time. I guess this is goodbye. Daniel, do you want to add something?
No, you said it perfectly, Bryce, but thank you guys, and thanks everyone for watching. And if there's any follow-up questions, don't hesitate. And yeah, that's it. Thank you guys so much for taking the time.
Take care, everybody.
Perfect. Take it easy. Bye.